I'll just talk about three lessons, and the three key takeaways are connect apple to cats, document everything, and this one, personality becomes a project, which becomes a product, which becomes a business. So, number one, what do I mean by connect apples to cats? And that's basically my definition of what of innovation. From my perspective, innovation is really just connecting two ideas together that have never been connected before and implementing that into reality. So hence why, apples and cats, they're so unrelated. But if you find a way to connect those two, you've created something different, whether it be a video, a business, a product, or just a piece of content. That's what I see as innovation. So just going back a little bit. So I've been programming since high school. And I got into programming because my friends and I wanted to build computer games. And when you want to build computer games, you naturally have to learn coding. So I often get asked, Ray, what was the life-changing book that sort of changed your life? It was this book called Python Crash Course by Eric Mathis. So I studied this book back in like high school, and this was probably the best programming book I've ever read because it teaches you how to build a game, and it's a very practical approach to building something. So, and again, I often get asked, "Hey Ray, what's the first step to learning programming? I've been doing this course, blah blah blah. I'm not learning, I'm not retaining anything." And my often go-to advice is follow a tutorial on how to build a game from start to finish. And so in this tutorial, it teaches you how to build a Space Invaders game. And I followed the book page by page to build a game. It took me around 2 weeks to build a game. After I built the game, I deleted the whole code base and rebuilt it. The second time I rebuilt it, I was relying on the book less and less. That took me 1 week. After that, I deleted the code base again and rebuilt it. The third time, I was only looking at the referring back to the book 5 or 6 times, and it took me like only like 4 days. And I rebuilt the same game 6 times until it got to a point where I could do the whole project by myself without the book. Even better, I turned the game into a tank shooter game. So this was like my very first computer game that I built during high school, and I shared with my friend. And back then it was like really cool because you just build a game that your friends could play. Now the key takeaway, and this was the core mindset that really changed my thinking. Every type of computer project is all about file conversions. So I'm showing you here like a typical interface that you see like when you open up a Word doc or Notepad, you click on File, Save As, and there's a bunch of formats that pop out. My go-to tip is learn every single format. Know the pros and cons of each format and know their purpose. Because once you understand the purpose of every format, workflows naturally fall into place because every workflow deep down is just trying to convert one format to another, trying to convert a JSON to a CSV into Word, or trying to convert a PDF into image into Word. Like every workflow that we're dealing with is just a bunch of file conversions. And having those basics intact really helped me sort of widen my perspective on how I can start on any project. Now, obviously, this was all pre-Claude Code, but even so, these sort of basics can help accelerate how you work with your AI tools, whether it be planning, architecture, or just getting straight to the right path without having to sort of prompt Claude and help you plan and spend tokens trying to get to the right pathway. So knowing this stuff can help you save tokens as well. So throughout high school and uni, I've been like building a lot of projects. This is like my private repo. I've built like 33 different projects along the way. But the one that really stood out was during COVID. It was lockdown, and one of my other hobbies is that I like to dance a lot. And I go to dance classes back then. But during COVID, classes were, obviously shut down. And so I was thinking, what the heck do I want to do? And it was around that time I was trying to learn around machine learning, like how do you predict stock prices. That was actually my project. I was trying to build. You can probably see it from here. There's probably a project called stock price. It's probably not in. It's probably my other repo. I was trying to build a stock price. Oh, sorry, there we go. Stock price detector. I was trying to build a stock price detector app that can basically build on a trading bot, and through that you naturally learn around machine learning patterns. But then again, going back to my first principle, connect apples to cats. As I was building the stock trading bot, I realized how boring it was. Like it was so dry and boring, and I lost motivation. And I thought, what would actually motivate me? And so I thought, is there some way I can apply machine learning to dance? So in this case, that's my apples to cats moment. And my hypothesis was if I can write an algorithm that analyzes a dance video and then you compare it to your own dance video, can you find similarities between your dance moves and send you screenshots as to where you could improve? That was my thesis. And so the next 2 or 3 months during lockdown, I focused on that hypothesis and I built an app. And the smart thing I did was that I recorded everything. So this goes to my point to document everything. I screen recorded, I wrote diary notes, I took screenshots, I made a vlog out of it. And I posted that vlog on YouTube. So this is my YouTube channel, which I briefly go into it. But my very first YouTube video, this is going back to a long time ago, was this one. Computer roasts my dance. So I vlogged the project, I posted on Reddit. It got modest views, and that motivated me to just build in public. So again, this was during COVID. So I did a 10-minute coding challenge. I built a Pokemon game in 18 minutes. I made some AI generated music. But then the key step change was again, how do you combine cats and apples together? I applied the same dance algorithm to analyzing K-pop moves. And that blew up. I mean, that back then that was quite a lot, 200K views. I did that again, and that got a lot of views. And that got me a formula. And so that made me realize that documenting everything and documenting really wacky, random connections is probably the path to virality. And that got me learning about the basics of not just, influence of virality, but like go to market content, how do you position content and product? And all of that learning can be summarized in step three: build a personal brand first. That personal brand, you start to see patterns, opportunities, and that patterns, opportunities, you systemize it, and that becomes a project. And once that project can be then commercialized, that becomes a product. And once that product is commercialized to a point that it makes serious like revenue, that becomes a business. So it's a very organic process, and I'll show you how that process came about. So after I made some YouTube videos, I did that for around 2 years. I made a lot of random videos on K-pop and AI, but I got to a point I was thinking, man, I don't want to be known as just the guy who does AI and K-pop. I mean, I did a law degree. I want to be a proper serious lawyer. I don't want to be known as that that content creator. So I wanted to pivot. And so how I first pivoted was that I first systemized my entire YouTube experience into an app. So this was my first time learning how to build mobile apps. So like that goes back to my principle: personality becomes a project, and that project becomes a product. And this is what the product is: Synctran. It just basically encodes all that into a mobile app. And that was kind of like the conclusion to my K-pop AI journey. Now I then encountered a different problem. For 2 years, my whole Techie Ray brand was built upon this K-pop AI. I now want to pivot into something a bit more serious and mature. So I had a bit of a branding sort of dilemma here, and so I started going on TikTok. Initially, I still did a bunch of dance AI, but then the key step change was again documenting my process. So this video was where I showed the behind the scenes on me writing the algorithm, working in my bedroom, explain the maths behind the project. People liked it. I then started showing tools like how to use Google machine learning, the terminology of AI, so more educational content. And I realized the pattern was that people gravitate towards educational content where you can really break down concepts. And that made me thought about LinkedIn. And so on LinkedIn, one of the things I realized that As you deep in AI, I start to procrastinate a lot around AI ethics. Because back then, before ChatGPT, the big AI thing was self-driving cars, and there were questions around, if a self-driving car is it going to approach either an elderly person or a baby, who should it hit first? Those type of moral dilemma questions, and I fell into the rabbit hole of AI ethics. That naturally led me towards AI regulation, things like the EU AI Act, also the Chinese AI regulations. Um, I didn't really have a grand plan behind it. I just found it interesting, and whenever I read a paper or journal article that stimulated my brain, I'll record that in a diary. And I have my diary here. Might be blurry on screen, but this is my golden diary, and he has all my. Oh, he can't see; it's all blurred out. But these are all my AI regulation notes. This one, it's all filled out with notes. Again, no purpose behind it other than to just write it. And then I started posting AI regulation summaries on my LinkedIn. Initially, no one really cared. It was like 2020. Who cares about AI regulation? Such a esoteric niche topic. But I kept doing it. I kept posting these summaries for 1 or 2 years. 5 likes became 10 likes, which became 30 likes. Until I built up a huge stash of LinkedIn posts on AI regulation. And because LinkedIn doesn't let you sort of search by topics or by country, I thought this might as well be a good time to build your own website. And I thought I wanted to just organize all my LinkedIn posts into a table where all posts relating to EU is there, all posts relating to Americas or in that row. So I built that spreadsheet. Then I thought, man, this is such a boring looking spreadsheet. Let's jazz it up. And this was the beginning of the AI regulation tracker. And this has been my flagship project for the past 3 years, where you have a map, click on a country, and it's like a Wikipedia summary like of their regulation. And so you can see here, it started with just these LinkedIn posts. So in the beginning, it was just country and a bunch of LinkedIn posts strung together. But then slowly I started building up the content and all that. And it got to a point where it blew up on my LinkedIn, and so like some of my bigger posts, and I've featured all of them intentionally here as reference. It got to a point where let me find it. This is the earliest version of the tracker. You can see here. Look at that. Just the barely any countries filled out. Just the main G20. Just very basic LinkedIn post. So this was 3 years ago, and it got a lot of reaction. So this is kind of like how tablet review was to Jamie. This is kind of like my tablet review moment, and that motivated me to continue building it out. But I knew it wouldn't be a short-term project. This is something that you do in the long term. And so my whole philosophy was I did this not because I wanted to get views. I did this because the process of building this, all of that knowledge gets committed to my memory. And my North Star is even if this website went down or I don't have it anymore, all of the AI regulation laws of every country is still in my brain. So this has always been kind of like a memory committed diary process. It's like a fancy big diary that I happen to make public for others to use. And so that was in my I went from personality, like personal brand, to project phase. Now, how did it become a product? That's where you start to think about backend. How do you host it? How do you get it to self update? And so, I mean, that's a whole separate topic, like the whole algorithm that helps curate content. But basically, I wanted to just talk about how to get from product to basically a side business. And this is where I start to realize that all this content could be channeled into a API. So I built an API that basically lets people access this, and people can subscribe to it, and they pay for a subscription. I recently created MCP server. So these are along the lines of data feed. Also thought about, the various formats. Again, going back to my very first point, think about the formats. API delivers a JSON format. MCP also delivers like a JSON format. What are other formats that people use? And I thought newsletters, right? Simple, plain HTML newsletters. And that motivated me to start a newsletter where every week I'll just post basically updates from the tracker into email. So this I mean, it's nothing too fancy. Everything just kind of became organic. And then I thought, what other formats can I work with? So I've conquered JSON, I've done HTML. What else? Oh, maybe images, visualizations. Well, let's go. That's a new project idea. I've got visual insights where you can turn the data into visualizations that show the world of AI regulation in pictures, and you can tell a story from that. And so that was another one. And so I was also thinking, what else can I turn this format? Oh, I can turn this format into an essay, the live and breathing essay. So this is also like my other big passion area where working this essay from the human eye, it just looks like an ordinary essay, but this essay updates by itself every day. And you can see here, if I turn on show change since 20 July, it'll automatically mark itself up. You see some of the markup here. See, that's some markup. Yeah, you can see like a bunch of markup here. It automatically updates itself based on the new updates to the tracker. So again, that again, you just understand formats. And so like this on the screen is HTML. Behind the scenes, this essay is in a JSON file. So it's playing with these different formats to achieve that. Yeah, and so that's kind of been my journey today. Obviously, it's not a polished business plan. It's not a polished, one like it's just organic pivots, and the pivots come from these three philosophies. And know your formats. Yeah, and that's it. Cool. Thanks, everyone.